All right, we are live. This is Alexi Kaplan, CPA from A. Kaplan CPA PC, your favorite tax time guy, with a special announcement regarding the PPP loan forgiveness and expenses attributed to all the forgiveness portion of the loan proceeds that you anticipate being forgiven. So I do not want to take any more of your time today than I have to. And as a result, I'm not sure how many people are zoomed in, but I will share my screen and I will concentrate on the news. So let's do that right now. You could possibly see my screen on the video. So Treasury and IRS issue guidance clarifying the deductibility of expenses where a business received PPP loan. Now, a lot of you have already contacted me to see what the timeline should be on whether or not we should wait or apply for the forgiveness now. How will the expenses be treated, etc. So IRS has been given conflicting information for a while now, and this is the latest as a few days ago. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to actually do this Facebook Live session earlier, and it was a kind of the impromptu situation today, but I did want to bring it to your attention. So according to Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, since the businesses are not taxed on the proceeds right here of the proceeds of forgiven PPP loan, the expenses are not deductible. This results in neither a tax benefit nor harm since the taxpayer has not paid anything out of pocket. That we knew before, that the PPP loan forgiveness, the forgivable portion of it will not be construed as income to the business owners. But the expenses under the original CARES Act were supposed to be still deducted, be able to be deducted by the taxpayer. Now, the IRS took a totally different stance as of November 18th of this year, which is 2 days ago. And they said this: in the case where the PPP loan was expected to be forgiven, and it is not, businesses will be able to deduct those expenses. What does that mean? Well, let's go back a little bit. If the business reasonably believes that the PPP loan will be forgiven in the future, expenses related to the loan are not deductible, whether the business has filed for forgiveness or not. Therefore, we encourage businesses to file for forgiveness as soon as possible. So let's discuss this a little bit. What does that mean? It means that if you follow all the guidelines and the rules for the loan, PPP loan funds to be forgiven, and you intend to apply for the forgiveness, whether you applied for it or have not applied for it, any expenses such as rent, utilities, mortgage interest, that you anticipate to be a portion of the forgivable loan proceeds should not be deducted on your tax returns for 2020. Let's review that again. If you anticipate any portion of the PPP loan funds to be forgiven, you cannot deduct them on your income tax return for 2020. That's a complete 180-degree interpretation and revenue ruling by the IRS back from a few months ago. And we're not sure where it stands right now, but as of a few days ago, that's the rule. So going into 2021, when you're all trying to prepare your tax returns and you use the PPP loan proceeds to pay for your rent expenses, utility expenses, mortgage interest expenses, and above and beyond payroll, that portion of the payroll and other expenses cannot be taken as a deduction on your 2020 corporate tax return. Okay, I just hope that this sinks in. In the case where PPP loan was expected to be forgiven, it is not, businesses will be able to deduct those expenses. So the other portion of the proposed, or actually final, revenue ruling that you could find on I could probably, on United States Department of the Treasury, which is right here, I could click on it. You could read through it if you'd like, but this is essentially a summary. Is stating that if any of the portion of the PPP loan that is not forgiven, then you could deduct those expenses going forward. Now, how is that going to play out? I have no idea. So, assuming we follow IRS guidelines and we do not deduct the payroll and the other related expenses where the PPP loan funds were used from 2020 tax return, and then months later, the bank comes back from the SBA saying that a portion of those loans were not forgiven for X, Y, and Z reasons, would you need to amend your 2020 return and claim those expenses or not? That's one of the questions. Would you get some kind of credit for those expenses on 2021? If you're a cash basis taxpayer, most likely not, right? Because everything was incurred. You received the loan in 2020 and you paid out the expenses in 2020. So you should report everything on 2020 tax return. So most likely, I suspect that there'll be a lot of amendments for 2020 calendar year tax returns, okay? The other, some of my colleagues are actually saying that perhaps you should just assume that you will not apply for the forgiveness if you haven't applied for it. Take the full deduction for 2020, and if you did apply for it and got approved, then you amend the 2020 tax return to remove the actual portion of the expenses that you deducted. So it could be one or the other. Now, one thing also to mention is that right now, I know for a fact that Senator Grassley from Iowa, he is completely opposed to this treatment by the IRS, and they're fighting this for the past few days. Will they succeed and have them overturn this ruling and stick to what the actual intention of the CARES Act was, meaning that you should have received the funds, used them for the intended purpose, and none of it would be income, and all of the expenses would still be able to be deducted, unlike what they're saying now. On the contrary, that will probably come in within the next maybe a month, maybe two, who knows. So the other part of me, based on my professional experience, because of all this uncertainty, with the actual timing of when you will apply for the PPP loan forgiveness, should you apply now or wait, or should you deduct the expenses on your tax return or not if you have applied it, or if you suspect that they will be forgiven as a part of the PPP, and therefore you would not be able to deduct them. There's a lot of different questions. What do we do about this? Honestly, at this point, I don't know, with the exception of just waiting, again, waiting for more clarification to possibly overturn this ruling by the IRS. Is this a smart thing to do? Look, I don't know. Based on my experience, I think that it would be wise for us to wait. However, a lot of my peers disagree because they go to the actual context that I shared with you, and they believe that we should not wait and we should just simply not take those expenses on your tax returns. Now, one final thing I'd like to mention, none of it is applicable to Schedule C filers. This is only applicable to partnerships and to S Corps and C Corps, not the sole proprietors. Why? Because most of the expenses were based on the actual net income or net profit of the business, and most of the net profit is essentially owner's compensation. So they have completely taken out the Schedule C filers from this new ruling, and they will still be able to deduct the payroll associated expenses, meaning they do not have any payroll for themselves, but all the distributions they took out are not subject to deductions like they are for S Corps, C Corps, and partnerships. So there's a lot more questions to it than answers. I did want to bring it to your attention. I do want you to speak to your accountant in terms of planning on how you want to tackle this obstacle on your 2020 corporate tax returns. Do you want to take the deduction? Do you not? Do you want to amend the tax return later or not? Will you still be required to amend the tax returns later? Most likely, yes. So your tax prep fees, most likely for the corporate tax returns for 2020, will essentially be doubled because of the additional compliance requirements resulting from the PPP loan forgiveness. Okay. Now, the other point that I like to make, if you decide not to apply for the forgiveness and simply treat this loan as a loan, you can still deduct the expenses. And I suspect that probably 20-25% of the people will rather do that and pay off the loan in the next 5 years or so than dealing with all the added compliance and complexity and potential audits by the IRS because of the forgiveness. I do not encourage anybody to simply give up and treat this loan as a loan and don't look to apply for the forgiveness. That's not the intention. But I just want to clarify that you have options, okay? And loan is a loan. It's not free money, quote unquote. It's not a grant, but it has to be repaid back with the interest at 1% over a 5-year period. Or you could apply for the forgiveness, and then the portion of the expenses used to determine the forgivable amount would not be able to be deducted on your tax return. At the end of the day, you still end up on top because you're only going to be responsible for paying taxes on the undeductible portion of the expenses, and your benefit is still greater than the actual tax portion, because the highest you could pay is 37% based on your tax bracket. But at the same time, is it the right decision for you? As a result, I encourage you to contact your trusted tax advisor and speak to them regarding your particular situation. If you're looking for someone else to assist you in this process, I am here to help, as I've been trying to help all of you out there since the beginning of this whole debacle on the PPP loans and the SBA loans and etc. So if you'd like to speak with me, I still have availability to help a couple of people for the rest of this year. Please contact my office at 718-577-2582 and to schedule your call to discuss your particular situation directly with me. And I'll see what I could possibly help you with and what will actually make more sense for you based on your specific situation. Okay. I did not intend for this Facebook Live session to scare everybody. I just wanted you to be ready for the obstacles that unfortunately the IRS is putting in front of all of us, already struggling business owners as a result of the unprecedented year we've had so far. We never expected this to happen, but we have to roll with the punches. I am taking the pride and lead in all of this for all of you out there, along with Daniel Geiker. And we're trying to help as many people as possible with anything and everything that we could. Now, I'll take some questions if you have any, and then otherwise we'll wrap up. Let's see, do we have any questions? Let me see. I don't think I have any questions, but in either case, I am recording this session on Zoom. I'll leave the Zoom link, actually the recording of the session on the Facebook page for all of you to watch in case you missed it. It is important for you to watch it, and it is important for you to pay attention to the recent ruling by the IRS with regards to non-deductibility of the expenses that you anticipate being forgiven under the PPP loan forgiveness program. This was your favorite tax time guy, Alexi Kaplan, CPA. I hope that everyone is staying safe, healthy, and positive, and not COVID-19 positive, but positive in a sense of your aura and mood and hoping for great things to come your way. So please stay vigilant, stay positive, stay healthy. If I don't do another Facebook Live session before the holidays, the Thanksgiving, I'd like to wish each and every one of you to have a great Thanksgiving family gathering and dinner with those that you love and grateful to have in your lives. Until next time, this was your favorite tax time guy, Alexi Kaplan, CPA from A. Kaplan CPA PC, where your financial freedom matters. I can be reached at 718-577-2582. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.